Hey there, this is Roots from the Allacrost team. A few days ago we published a development release, so today I'm going to play through it. In the process I'm going to be talking about several things. Of course I'll be covering the contents of this release, both what we have and what we're still missing. And I'll be discussing some of the underlying design philosophy about this game. For example, what the motivations are behind some of our major features and what parts of the design are still undecided or untested. So, everything you see is a work in progress. The dialogue text is a placeholder. There's going to be missing or incomplete art in several places, and I'm not going to mention every single thing. Should be obvious when something is missing or doesn't look right. In this opening scene, there hasn't been much change. The animations have greatly improved, and we also now have the mock hounds, those large dogs animated, which we wanted to get those animated for a long time, and it wasn't until someone a few months ago came around and said, hey, I want to help out, and said, oh, well, maybe you can do these. We've been needing them for a long time, and you just like spit them out like it was nothing and said, oh, there you go. And it's crazy. That's just how things happen sometimes, and it's great when we get something like that. That's really difficult done. So a lot of the work that went into this release isn't really visible to the player. A lot of it was in the back end. A big focus is on our map editor because we are having larger and more complicated maps now than we have in the past, and our old editor just wasn't cutting it. It was tedious and frustrating to use for several things, so I spent a good number of months making that better in several ways, and it's been frankly awesome to work with now, and it grants us a lot more flexibility to design whatever we would like to. So the River Access Cave, this is the first dungeon here where the player first assumes control. In the beginning of this cave, I had originally intended to have a lot of tutorial type events go on, but I realized, you know, this isn't absolutely necessary information for the player to know right now, and I don't want them to start out a game, you know, just reading a whole bunch of text and going through a tutorial to figure out how to get from A to B and all that. So I'm just going to introduce that at a later point in not in this release, but in the near future, once kind of all the initial action from the game dies down. This battle tutorial here I'm not going to go over. In fact, I'm going to remove the part about status effects because I just frankly don't think that that is important enough information for the player to know at this point in the game. One of the things is I don't want to throw a whole bunch of information at the player right at the outset and get them, have them try to keep all these things straight in their head. I want it to be very basic in the beginning and then gradually introduce features over time as the player gets more and more comfortable with the different concepts. So coming up here, here's a bug. There should be a dialogue icon over every NPC that has something to say, but that has not been showing up. So that's something for us to fix in the future. A lot of these battles I'm going to be running by and skipping because I don't just want to spend all this time going through the same battles. One thing that's interesting about Allacrost is there is no run command within battle itself. Once you are in a battle, it is fight or lose. You know, there's no way to get away from the enemy. If you want to run, you have to run preemptively on the map, which is kind of nice, I think. I've never really was a huge fan of the run command in battles myself. One thing that I would like to do is to have the lighting in the cave have little light halos around all of the character sprites, so it's as if they are holding torches, and have the darkness kind of taper off away from the player. We did that actually in our very first release a long time ago, but I am not sure if our graphics engine still supports that, so that's something I'll have to test out and see. So I'll talk about battles for a little bit here. One of the main design points in this game is we wanted to have fewer battles but longer battles than, say, your typical RPG of this type. The reason for that is I've been playing a lot of RPGs lately, and one thing I've noticed is that there are so many battles that last less than a minute, or even less than 10 seconds. And, you know, at that point it's like, what's the purpose of this battle? This is just, you know, it's not interesting, it's not fun, it's just delaying me from getting to my objective. So, I'm hoping that by having longer battles, we can make them more complicated, but I don't want to also, you know, have the player spend so much time in battles that they're never exploring either. So that's kind of a trade-off that we're testing out and seeing if it'll work for us. Another feature you might have noticed is you're able to pre-select commands for your characters in battle. The reason for this is to kind of speed things along in a battle, because sometimes you know what commands you want to select. You want to select the same attack command, or you want to heal a character. There's no reason why you'd have to wait until the moment where the character's like, okay, now I'm done, you know, recovering from my last action and I'm ready to execute a new one, so tell me what to do. It just seems very time consuming and disjointed, so that's the whole reasoning behind adding that feature there. And I think it's working out really well so far. You are able to change or cancel a pre-selected command as well, so once you select a command, it's not like you're stuck to it. You are stuck to it once the character is actually in the process of beginning to execute that command. Of course, you can't just say, okay, hey, stop what you're doing mid-animation. One issue I have that I'm concerned about is if it's apparent enough that you can walk up to this little hole in the wall here and pass through it. It's just doesn't seem that intuitive to me, and I don't know if most players would look at that and kind of figure out, hey, if I walk here, then this will automatically send me through the wall. There is otherwise a dead end, so hopefully they would figure it out eventually, but I want to add something there that makes it kind of more obvious that, hey, you can walk through here. So now we're toward the end of the cave, and the exploration part is now over. All the rest of the vents are scripted, and the player has no control other than the battles that are to come here. One thing, this is kind of like an enemy gauntlet prior to the boss fight, and one of the things I want to do is to start playing the attack music instead of having the cave music continue right now, to kind of like set the mood appropriately, like, you know, now we're facing many enemies, and one thing you'll notice is that you just suddenly enter a battle without any sort of visual cue other than the text that the characters say. That's just something that I haven't added yet, but eventually there'll be little enemy sprites that spawn in on the edges of the screen and then walk up to the knights there, and then the battle will engage that way to make it a little more cleaner. Another thing about battles right now is the available commands I'm not satisfied with at all, because really you just have different attack commands and that's pretty boring. In fact, another thing is you have no way of recovering your SP, which are the kind of like the resource that you need to consume in order to execute more advanced attacks. And you also see that you can select each of these skills, you can select a specific attack point, or attack target. I don't know exactly what we call them nowadays, but by targeting different areas on enemies, you can cause different status effects or deal more damage. For example, targeting the head often deals more damage, but you're more likely to miss, and etc. There's all kinds of trade-offs. So you can explore weaknesses and find strengths and things like that. There's a lot of rough edges in the battle system right now, which you've probably already noticed by now if you're actively watching this video. There's a lot of animations that are just not fluid enough. There's the menu, especially toward the end of the battle, are not good. You saw a status effect there, affected Lucar. and you can hit a key to toggle away the HP and SP bars to show what status effects are active on a character. We did it that way because we didn't really know where to put these status icons. So that was just kind of like, hey, let's do this. And it seems to be working so far, but it certainly isn't obvious to the player that, hey, you can hit this button and toggle that. So now we come to our boss encounter at the end of this cave. As you can tell, this enemy sprite is not complete at all. It's missing its damage frames, which are the additional frames to the base sprite that illustrate different degrees of damage as you deal damage to a sprite, which you've probably seen throughout the battles previous to this one. We just haven't had time to really finish this sprite yet. So you see Lucar executed a skill there that actually froze the enemy's action. A stun strike, I think, is what the skill is called. And that deals a status effect in addition to dealing damage. It's kind of a little overpowered at this point just because it delays the enemy for so long, but like I said, you know, this is all unbalanced and still a work in progress. See, there I accidentally hit the key right as the XP screen came up and it automatically counted it out, and I didn't want it to do that. So that's one of the things I was mentioning with a lot of the rough edges in the battle system. These will eventually be ironed out. It just hasn't been a high priority, and it's not something that's been holding us back. And so we've been trying to focus on the things that are preventing us from making forward progress, and not the things that, yeah, this obviously needs to be better, but we'll have to wait for an opportunity to fix it. This return scene here, I'd actually like to see the screen get brighter as the knights walk here. You saw the text there in the dialogue. They mentioned that the screen is brighter in the distance of the city. They're walking back to the city at the moment. So there's not much really to say about this scene. They're, toward the end here, you're going to see them kind of all sprint off, and I do want to improve that a little bit so that they're not all, you know, going the same pace or they all start at the same time. And here's our final map. This is the largest map we've ever produced. It is quite enormous, frankly. And the music here is, it's not temporary, but it's not the music that we intend to use with this scene. Kind of want some sort of danger music, you know, because even though this map isn't complete at all, as you see here, Claudia's saying that this map is not complete. The city's supposed to be under attack by demons, and, you know, we don't really have an appropriate track for this, so we might just pick something up from Open Game Art that's appropriate, or might find a new composer to work on that. It's strange that we don't have that, because we've known that we needed a track like that for a very long time, but we never had it. The stairs there in the building, they look really nice by themselves, but they look absolutely ugly when they're together with other tiles there, so that's something that definitely needs some improvement. The menu mode here hasn't changed in a very long time, just because it hasn't been a high priority. It does what we need it to do, even though it's very sloppy and could really use some UI improvement. The save feature of the game, I believe you can save, but loading probably won't work, at least on the cave map. One of the initial design ideas was to not have save points in this game so that you could save anywhere. What we found is that is a little more difficult to do in practice. So I'm starting to lean more toward now, like, hey, let's just have a save point. Let's not make this. This is already a very complicated game with a lot of features, and I just don't see this as being something that's necessary or that's really going to make the game any better. When we're talking about design and features, one of the things I always have our team ask ourselves when we're discussing a certain feature is is this going to make the game better? Is it going to make it more enjoyable? Or is it just going to make it look nicer or something? Because ultimately, you want to play a game because you enjoy it. So if you can't justify a reason why a feature makes the game more enjoyable, then it's probably not something that's worth adding, or it might even make the game worse in some ways. The shop menu here, I kind of talked over that, but it's a shopping cart interface where you can mark your purchases and sales before you actually complete the transaction. And the reason for that particular design is sometimes you arrive at a new town and you don't have enough funds to purchase all the equipment you'd like, and it's difficult to figure out, well, okay, I could either afford, 2 shields and a helmet, or I could 1 torso armor and a helmet, or, and so on. So the purpose of that is to help the player figure out the best combination of purchases and sales that they can do. And the trade feature in the shop, that, like you probably saw earlier, that's not available yet. But essentially what that will do is you can select a character and select a piece of equipment and say, okay, buy this new sword, sell the old sword that my character has, and equip the new sword on him. So that just kind of helps speed along things so you don't have to enter into the menu. But yeah, that's pretty much it. This map is still a work in progress. And in the future you'll see a lot of the work is going to happen here. So thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it.